Hey friends, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to kind of a new experimental video I'm doing where I discuss like different forms of media and just talk about the characters of the story and my thoughts about it. And today I want to talk about the Persona 4 Arena manga. So this manga is adapted from the Persona 4 Arena video game. And for those of you who don't know, it's a fighting video game from 2012, kind of in the same vein of like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, kind of those like arcadey type video games. But it mainly streamlines the Yosuke and Aigis narratives in that game, and it's adapted by IAQ, and it is canon to like the mainline game, so it's actually set 3 years after Persona 3, and about 2 months after Persona 4. But without further ado, let's get into Volume 1. So Volume 1 starts off with Aigis stopping a hijacking of a plane, and so she's now working for the Creator Group as like this kind of James Bond type character. It's just great. I love like seeing her in that role. And we soon find out that Mitsuru, who is now the head of the Creator Group, was on that plane. And at first they think, the hijackers were there to kidnap her, but she reveals that they were actually there to get her luggage. And she tells Aigis that she was carrying a relic from the Creator Group. And sure enough, it's now missing, but luckily there was a witness who saw the hijackers leave with it. And we get to see Naoto meet Aigis and Mitsuru, and not gonna lie, I cheered when I saw Naoto. She's great. But they end up tracking the vehicle back to Inaba, and Mitsuru mentions that there was a level 4 shadow incursion there last year, which really could have used your help, guys. We didn't have to face that alone. And Mitsuru tells Aigis that the stolen relic was actually an older generation robot like herself. So now it's up to Aigis and Mitsuru to rescue Aigis' older sister. And meanwhile, in Inaba, Yu Narukami returns and meets Nanako at the train station. And we get some nice scenes of him, Nanako, and Dojima, just reuniting and just, spending some family time. But later that night, the Midnight Channel returns, and we're treated to quite an interesting little spectacle. It's ripped word for word from the game's intro, so I'll just show that now.
They are friends, yet powerful foes. The desperate fighting program amongst high school students. A new legend is about to start.
May the manliest of all men come on down!
Nobody touches his precious Nanako, the sister complex kingpin of steel, Yu Narukami!
It's only natural.
Wage slave in the boonies by day, hero by night, Captain Resentiment, Yosuke Hanamura!
Everything that bores me has gotta go!
A spunky dragon with deadly legs, the carnivore who's discarded womanhood, Chie Satonaka!
You need to eat more meat!
Please escort me to the ring, my prince! The unconquerable Snow Black, Yukiko Amagi!
I'll finish you in one strike!
Blooming roses and bulging muscles, the blood-curdling beefcake emperor, Kanji Tatsumi!
Deep into realms of romance,
the body of a child, the brain of a genius, the 2000 IQ killjoy detective, Naoto Shirogane!
Is this an army of idiots?
Fight and survive towards the one throne waiting at the end! The P1 Grand Prix where fierce fights will be fought! The battle begins tonight!
And on his way to Junes the next day to meet up with the others, Narukami sees a limo barreling through town. And we get this fun little scene where Aigis tells Mitsuru that they need to be discreet on this mission, and Mitsuru basically tells her to just shut up. And we also get a fun little cameo from the cop in 3 that sells you stuff, where now he's a detective. And he meets up with them and explains the events of 4 to them. And eventually they arrive at a junkyard and find an intact TV. And Aigis reaches inside and confirms that, Persona users can enter the TV. And then we get kind of like a wacky Batman-esque intro where Akihiko shows up and he's trying to aura farm. It's really weird. But back at Junes, Yosuke, Chie, and Yukiko reunite with Narukami, and we learn that Teddy, Kanji, and Rize are missing. But they reinstate the investigation team and decide to enter the TV. And meanwhile, Akihiko and Mitsuru clash over whether they should enter the TV now or just wait till later. But meanwhile, Aigis is just happy that her friends are back. It's really cute. I love her. But eventually Mitsuru relents and they decide to enter the TV as well. And as they enter, the investigation team remarks that it feels very different, but nevertheless they push forward. And we get a scene of Yosuke waking up in the school where everything seems normal until he encounters a TV and Rize is on it and she's acting really weird. And we see the other Teddy from the intro show up and he exclaims that the P1 Grand Prix has started. And during this, Yosuke sees a weird girl who only refers to herself as the student council president. And the other Rize tells the students to attack her, but Yosuke saves her with his persona and she runs off. Meanwhile, the Persona 3 cast enters the copy of the high school, and Aigis meets a very pissed off Kanji. She tries talking it out, but Kanji isn't acting himself, and he's now a certified Clanker hater. And as they fight, Yosuke encounters Chie, who remarks that she wants to eat him. Yep. And volume ends as Mitsuru enters the school and remarks that she cannot communicate with anyone using her persona. So volume 2 opens up with Aigis and Kanji's fight. And Aigis quickly realizes that Kanji was acting very different as he was before, so she ends up quickly beating him, which results in a very funny panel when we see her princess carrying him. And I didn't realize why it took me this long to realize that Kanji is kind of a tsundere. Like, it's pretty funny. But he remarks to her that he doesn't think she's artificial, and that he thinks she's human, which just shows how I love Kanji. He's just so great and so nice. And Aigis quickly realizes that who she fought wasn't Kanji's normal self before he abruptly passes out. And the other Teddy appears and taunts her, which she urges Kanji to stay safe before departing. And meanwhile, the other Rize is getting really mad at Yosuke because he's refusing to fight Chie. She tries to rage bait him by calling him a beta and not an alpha, but Yosuke refuses to take the bait, really showing his growth that he had from 4. And eventually he manages to one-shot Chie, and we get a scene that really shows just how much this author knows and understands these characters, where Chie breaks down and Yosuke tries to comfort her, but it results in those two arguing like they always do. But eventually the other Teddy appears, and they find out that only the victor can move forward. The loser is blocked by these invisible walls. And we get a really cute scene where Chie tells Yosuke that she believes in him. And I just love these two. They're great. And meanwhile, Aigis, while wandering the halls, runs into the student council president, who she kind of feels something towards when she sees her. And as the council president heads off, she manages to just briefly touch her. And as she goes around the corner, Aigis calls out for her sister, but it's already too late. She's gone. And unfortunately, the real Teddy makes his appearance by waking up. Yay. Great. And the student council president runs into him. Run, girl, run. Don't be near that bear. I hate that bear so much. But he follows her around. And meanwhile, Mitsuru manages to contact Aigis, who tells her about, the workings of the tournament and all that. And they also do confirm that the student council president is indeed Labris, her sister. And meanwhile, we get a very funny interaction where Akihiko, the protein field man that he is, challenges Narukami to a fight. A man-to-man duel. And Narukami low-key calls him, gay. I don't know, what? I don't know what's happening here. But Narukami's pretty smart and knows that Akihiko could crush him in, a physical man-to-man fight. So he tries to reason with him, but, Akihiko's already, taken over by whatever this alternate self is and attacks him. And during their fight, Akihiko just is trying to roast Narukami the entire time, and the other Rize is also getting on the roast too. She tells him that he doesn't have any balls. What? This is the most wildest part of the manga. But Narukami is almost beaten, but eventually he locks in and manages to defeat Akihiko. And we get another very funny scene where Akihiko is just kind of weirded out by him saying it's cool that he's protective of his little sister Nanako, but it's just kind of weird how protected he is. But the two make up and realize that they've been seeing illusions of each other while fighting. And before he leaves, Akihiko warns Narukami about Aigis and Mitsuru, saying that they're very competent and that they'll probably kick his ass, which, yeah, they probably would. And meanwhile, Yosuke sees Teddy and Labris running around, and when he tries to go after them, he runs into Yukiko, who calls him Stinky. Okay. She tells him that the whole Grand Prix is made just for him, right before attacking him. He tries to reason with her, but she calls him a loser, and so he says he'll make it quick. And the volume ends with Naoto watching their fight from afar. So Volume 3 opens with Naoto explaining that she was investigating the Kiriju group for possible corruption, but now she's just fully committed to uncovering what's happening in the TV world. And meanwhile, we return to Yosuke and Yukiko's fight, and she is literally roasting him, both figuratively and physically. But luckily he locks in and manages to defeat her. And the two apologize, and Yukiko urges him to go rescue Labras, who they both think is a person that got trapped in the TV, like, the events of Persona 4. And unfortunately, Yosuke immediately runs into Narukami, who everything seems to be normal at first until he accidentally mentions Nanako, which triggers Narukami's change. Yosuke tries to reason with him, but it's clear that the illusion has control now. So Yosuke decides to rage bait him by calling Nanako stupid. Meanwhile, Mitsuru tries to use her persona to communicate, but is unable to reach the outside world. She just gets a transmission from Labras lamenting that she's a robot and not a human. But just as the transmission ends, Naoto appears. She quickly signals to Mitsuru to stay quiet, and Mitsuru, understands what she's saying. But then her personality shifts and they begin to fight. But luckily, Mitsuru manages to easily defeat Naoto. And the two apologize and catch each other up to speed on current events. And meanwhile, we get scenes from both Narukami and Yosuke's perspectives as the two fight. And the two know what they're seeing is an illusion, and they trust the other completely, as they are partners. And Yosuke defeats him, and they profusely apologize to each other. Again, I just love these two and their interactions. Like, their characters are just great. And meanwhile, Teddy ruins everything by asking Labras her real name, which triggers a panic attack in her as she starts to remember her past. And she eventually breaks down and exclaims that she doesn't want to fight her sisters. And at the same time, both groups determine that Labras is the cause of the TV world being this way. And we get to see the real Rize trying to sneak away, but the other Teddy reprimands her, saying that the tournament's climax is approaching. Yosuke manages to barge in, and the other Teddy reveals that he's an illusion. Rize blows up at him for using, her face and her image against her permission, and to deceive the others. And the other Teddy says that he had fun with this Grand Prix, but that Yosuke should be happy that he just won and is getting the hero treatment now. And just as Labras walks in, he tells her that she got what she wanted, but she denies this and says that she didn't want to see others fight. The other Teddy insists, but Labras continues to just deny it. And this causes the other Teddy to dissolve and reveal himself to be Labras' shadow. So it tries to tell Labras that she is just a robot, but Labras continues to insist that she's not a robot, she's human. And luckily our best girl, Aigis, bursts in and says that she's going to save Labras from this and defeat her shadow. But unfortunately, her calling Labras by her name again triggers another panic attack. And we get a big flashback explaining Labras' backstory. And she trains to fight shadows by fighting her sisters. And she begs the researchers to, find another way, which, that's a terrible way, like, come on. And we see one of her sisters grab her hand to reassure her before Labras is forced to kill her, which, damn. Talk about, a heartbreaking, backstory. And then back in the present, Aigis reaches out to her, urging her to endure the pain so that she can come home. But, again, Labras refuses, saying that she'll never go back to that research place. That she developed a human heart while she was killing her sisters. And she remarks that she even made a friend, who she was forced to kill with her own hands. But Aigis says that she's not going to take her back to the research facility, and unfortunately Labras does not believe her, and remarks that she's truly alone, and that she's not human. And we get a very harrowing image where she says that she's alone because she destroyed everyone else. And as Labras struggles with what her shadow is currently saying, Yosuke and Rize realize that her shadow is trying to get her to deny it like their shadows did in 4. And unfortunately Labras does, and the shadow transforms. And as Labras lays on the ground weak, Aigis reassures her, saying that she was once alone, and that she managed to find friends. And Yosuke also tells her that it's hard to accept yourself, but he's going to help her do that. And what a great melding of the two games' themes. I just loved the way the author wrote these two characters and blended, the two games together. And we get a great team up where Aigis and Yosuke face off against Labrys's shadow, and Rize helps them. And Yosuke channels his inner Makoto Yuki by putting on some tunes while fighting. I just thought that was funny. And I just love seeing how both Aigis and Yosuke like cover each other and swoop in to save each other at the last moment. You know, even though they don't even know each other, they're there to help Labrys, and it's just a great like character moment for them. And eventually Aigis gets knocked out, so it's just Yosuke now. Labrys tries to like trash talk him and say that he's the one who faced himself the least out of everyone in the group. But luckily Rize knocks some sense into him and provides an assist for him. And we get a nice montage of each member in the investigation team urging Yosuke to push forward, to believe in himself, and that they believe in him as well. Again, I just love these characters so much. So Yosuke manages to channel the power of friendship and gets back up. And he locks the fucking and delivers a massive blow to Labrys. And meanwhile, Aigis gets a pep talk too. We get a small glimpse of Fuka, who Mitsuru manages to contact. And so Aigis manages to channel the power of human connection and locks back in. And her and Yosuke manage to defeat Shadow Labrys. And with her shadow defeated, the real Labrys just laments the fact that all she wanted was, connection with her friends and her sisters. And that she wanted, the research facility to be like a real school, where she had friends. And that's why she wanted to make real, students fight to kind of like get back at them so that they could feel what she felt. And we get a scene of Yosuke comforting her, saying that when Saki died in Persona 4, he really didn't think anyone felt the way he did. And he thought that, nobody felt the pain that he was feeling. But he learned that if you have friends, you can lean on them and, they'll help you through the hard stuff. And Labrys cries and hugs her shadow, remarking that she has friends now and that it's going to be okay. And with that, her shadow becomes her persona, and the invisible walls across the entire school are dropped, and the Grand Prix comes to a close. But before they can celebrate, something possesses Labrys and remarks that it wants them even more now. Using Labrys, it grabs Aigis and says that it's going to tear her to pieces. But luckily, Akihiko and Mitsuru manage to disable Labrys before it can harm Aigis. Fuka calls from outside the TV and informs him that the presence is outside of the TV and very, very far away. The thing reveals that its plan was to basically pull all of the strongest Persona users into one place and steal their hearts in order to make shadows of massive power. And it tries to get them to kill Labrys, but luckily she manages to break free from its grasp using the power of friendship. And Fuka teams up with Rize to prevent the entity from entering Labrys again. And it remarks that their powers are exactly what it needs, but it flees for the time being, saying that they'll meet again when it's time to acquire their true vessel. Labrys remarks that she's happy that she's not alone anymore, and everyone decides to leave the TV world. And at the end of a train station, Labrys tells Yosuke that she's going to team up with the former members of Seeds to go and try to find this mysterious entity that's been trying to take them. The former Seeds gang tells the investigation group that they'll search for the entity and that, they can stay out of it, that, they can just be normal kids again. Which the investigation group is, understandably upset over being left out over. But Narukami reassures the gang, saying that they should trust Seeds to do the right thing. And the novel ends with the investigation gang saying that there's another mystery that needs to be solved, a real type of Scooby-Doo ending.